Welcome. I'm excited to show you our newest product, Individualization. If you ever look at the Blackbaud Idea Bank, you'll notice that the top voted issue that has ever been presented there is the issue of converting individuals to organizations and vice versa. I'm going to walk you through the customization and show you how it works. Here's Blackbaud CRM. Hopefully that's not a surprise to you. You can see that I'm looking at our old friend Robert C. Hernandez in a sample database. Having loaded the customization, you'll see a new task, Convert to Organization. And it's as simple as clicking that task to change Robert into an organization. So let me do that. It'll say, are you sure you want to convert Robert C. Hernandez into an organization? I'll say yes. And there he is. Now he's an organization. You can see that his contact information has been preserved. We get the organization info tab on his record. And I can change him back if I want. I have this convert to individual task, which has now become available. You can see all of the out-of-the-box functionality is lit up. I have corporate info, I have organization info, I have organization history. And if I want to, I can change him back. Of course, Hernandez is not supposed to be an organization. He's supposed to be an individual. Let me change it back. It'll say, are you sure you want to convert Hernandez into an individual? I say yes. There. Now he's back to normal. The organization tabs are gone and no information has been lost. He's still, he's just back to normal. I have entered a bunch of test organizations in my database so that I can show you this customization. Let me pull one up. You can see that I've entered 1,000 test organizations. I'll pick number 112. These are very simple records. I just wrote a script to blow them all in. Not a lot of information here yet. Let's add a little organization info. What I want to show you is how organization info is not lost when we change back and forth. So I'm going to edit the organization details. I'm going to say this number 112 is in the banking industry with, let's say, 45 employees, one subsidiary, and their website is testorg.com. I'll save that. Now I'm going to convert them to an individual. Are you sure? Yes. There, they're an individual. Happened virtually instantly. And then I think to myself, you know what? That was a mistake. That should have been. They should stay an organization. So I'm going to change it back. Are you sure? Yes. And look, I still have test organization. I have the industry. I have the website. All the information I entered has been preserved, even though that information is not applicable to individual and it went through the individual state and then came back. That information was preserved. So there you go. Converting to and from individuals and organizations is very straightforward and easy to do with this customization. That's important and that's necessary, but it's not sufficient. If you ever look at that idea bank, if you read through the comments on it, you'll see that one of the reasons that people need this behavior is because of old converted data. In other words, they converted from Razor's Edge or some other non-Blackbaud product, and a bunch of individuals were loaded into their system as orgs, or a lot of orgs were loaded in their system as individuals. So that's no good. To deal with those, it would be tedious, right, to go through and find every single one of these records and click this task. You might have to do it 1,000 times or 10,000 times, depending on how big the conversion issue was. So fear no more. We can deal with that. There are two new global changes that you'll see under Administration, global changes. One of them changes individuals to orgs, and the other one, you guessed it, changes orgs to individuals. These are two separate global changes, but they behave, of course, in very similar ways. So I'm going to change organizations to individuals. You'll recall that I had 1,000 test orgs in my database. So I'm going to look at this global change, which I've set up in advance. This global change will take a selection. You can feed it any selection you want. If you feed it a selection of course, it's trying to change orgs to individuals. If you feed it a selection of constituents who are not organizations, it'll just skip over those. If you give it groups, for example, it's not going to do groups. It's only orgs. But this query that I've created is just filtering from my test orgs. Is it an organization? Is yes, and I'm looking for that name that I put in my test script. I have 1,001 records found. Fine. I'm going to close that selection, and I'm going to run this script, or sorry, this global change. You'll see that it finished in just 2 seconds. This job runs very quickly. All of those organizations will now be individuals, and we can click here on my recently used link, and you'll see the test org 112 is an individual. If you don't believe me, we can look for any of them you want. How about 179? It's an individual. Now, let's go back to our global change, and okay, we made a mistake, right? That's not really what we want. Let's change. Let's go back to global changes and change those individuals back. So let's look at this global change. It again is driven by a selection. It's filled. Has a selection called test individuals, which, if you look, are just my test orgs, but with the org flag set to no. This brings out a good point, by the way. It's important to note that when you convert an org to an individual or vice versa, all of the out-of-box things that follow along with that will work. You're going to have an organization flag, you're going to have organization data, all of the nodes that would normally light up in query are going to light up. It's going to be a seamless process. You're not going to have a scenario where you converted a constituent and then it's an org, but no, there's no but. They're an organization or an individual after this job finishes. Anyway, so here's my selection. You can see that it has 1,001 records. I'll run it. And now all 1,000 records are done. This one was even faster, 1 second. If I look at one of these organizations, you'll see they're back. 112 is back. You can have fun with that all day. So if you have a bunch of converted data, the only challenge you now have is selecting them. You'll need to identify with an ad hoc query. You'll need to identify your problematic conversion data, and if you can identify it with a query, you can change it with this global change. One other thing to note: if you run the process again, notice I ran it again, and now, of course, the number of records is 0. They have already been converted to organizations, and because of this query, it's looking for an org of no, and of course that's returning no records because the job finished before. All right, that's it. You have the 2 tasks on the constituent page: one to convert individuals to orgs, and vice versa. They'll light up at the right times. They prompt you, and they're reversible. You have no data loss issues. You can go back and forth as much as you want. And you have a global change to scoop up all of your problematic records and change them all at once in just a few seconds. I hope this has been useful, and I hope that you buy this customization and use it because it's a powerful addition to the chain of tools on your belt. If you have any questions, please contact me at contact@steinsoftware.com, or look at the contact page and reach me in any of the ways that are listed there at steinsoftware.com/about. Thank you.